It's your boy Mullah. This week at the fight, we back with another one. I'm trying to see how true was life, the movie. This is one of my favorite movies too. This is a true classic. You know what I'm saying? If you ain't see this, you don't know what you missed. So, with that being said, we about to check it out. Let's get on right up in there, y'all. Pow.
1999 comedy Life, right? You got Martin Lawrence playing opposite Eddie Murphy, two comedy giants who dominated the stage, television, and film. Eddie had the 80s. Then Martin came and pulled up and stole on the 90s. Fans of the two were desperate for another reteaming after Boomerang, and they finally got their wish. Life features a supporting cast of Bernie Mac, Miguel A. Nunez Jr., Anthony Anderson, Guy Torrey, Rick James, Bokeem Woodbine, and it continues on and on. The movie was packed with stars. Everyone's
Is he
performances were
packed?
so convincing that it had the feeling of a true story. In the film, Eddie and Martin play Ray Gibson and Claude Banks, two strangers who meet each other and end up getting wrongfully convicted of murder and get sentenced to life in prison. We love Life for its authenticity. It's one of those movies that come off as a true story, you know? Like the ending even tells us what Ray and Claude are up to now, keeping up with it. Life deals with issues that affect the world today, and it falls in line with Eddie's method of sliding in covert messages within his movies. Because the film dealt with the prison system and took place at the real life Mississippi State Penitentiary,
Mm-hmm.
Parchment Farm, the accuracy of the Life movie had to be as authentic and spot on as possible. The writers and producers did their job after researching the tough conditions of prison farms and several cases of wrongful imprisonment. This is what was true in the movie Life.
Mm.
Wrongful imprisonment. Accurate.
All
Wrongful
the time.
imprisonment is the most prevalent topic in life, and it's something that still happens to this day. A recent case being Ricky Jackson, who spent 39 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. 40 years. It's a long time for any crime being murder. It's a hell of a lot longer when you're innocent. When Jackson was 18, he and a friend were arrested for killing a man, Harold Franks, outside a convenience store. Jackson and his friends swore they'd never seen Franks before, but a statement from a 12-year-old told police Jackson and his friend committed the crime. In 1975, Jackson was convicted of a murder and sentenced to die by an electric chair. Just 2 weeks later, the death sentence was reduced to life after Ohio's capital punishment law was deemed unconstitutional by the U.S. Supreme Court. Jackson was exonerated in 2014 after his original arrest in 1975. Stories of wrongful imprisonment happen way too often. John Bunn is another one who spent 17 years of his life in a maximum security prison and another 10 years on parole for a crime he didn't even commit. At the age of 14, police picked up Bunn because they thought he was involved in the killing of an off-duty Rikers Island corrections officer. At the trial, Bunn was sentenced to 20 years to life, but was later reduced to 9 to life. Life? What do you mean? Like, hell no, I ain't doing no life. It's a mistrial. It's a mistrial.
It's crazy, y'all. This real life.
Misconduct. Accurate. After 27 years, in 2015, a motion was filed on John Bunn's behalf by the Exoneration Initiative, where the judge declared that the evidence used to convict Bunn was paltry and claimed that the detective on the case, Detective Scarcella, had a disregard for rules, law, and the truth. Sound familiar? Bunn was a free man. As of 2018, 14 of Scarcella's cases from the 80s and 90s have been overturned due to tainted evidence, misleading testimony, or forced confessions. Unfortunately, Scarcella has never been charged for a crime.
What?
The statute of limitations has expired for any possible offenses and crimes that he's done. Scarcella
Wow.
remains in New York City collecting a pension. Life
Wow.
shows that some cops have no problem with letting others take the blame for the crimes that they didn't commit.
Sad, yo. It's so sad, people.
Where the 5 young men were falsely convicted of assaulting and raping a
What's
white
the Central
female
Park?
jock. All of the falsely
Murder or
convicted
whatever?
served their sentences before they were exonerated after
Five
confession
Central,
came from
Central
another
5,
inmate.
Central Park 5.
5 boys didn't have lawyers present during the questioning, and none of their DNA matched the DNA from the crime scene. Nor was there any physical evidence connected to the 5 teenagers. But they were prosecuted after police coerced confessions out of them. DNA. Accurate. Life starts off in the year 1932. The only reason Ray and Claude were arrested is because they were still with the body. According to the information found on the Innocence Project's page, DNA testing was first used in a criminal trial in England in 1986. One could only hope that if DNA existed back then, evidence would have found that Ray and Claude was innocent. But the way the criminal justice system is set up, crooked cops and all that, you know how that works.
Sad.
Wishful thinking. Prison farm. That's accurate. When Ray and Claude are sentenced to life in prison, they're sent to Camp 8 Parchment Farm, a real prison located in Mississippi. The writers and
Camp
producers of
8.
Life had to do a ton of research on prison farms and work conditions to keep the accuracy. After being sentenced to life in prison, Ray and Claude get sent to a prison farm in Mississippi where they must perform hard labor for the rest of their lives.
Man,
Work conditions.
oh, tripping.
Accurate. Inmates at the prison work on the prison farm and in manufacturing workshops. It holds prisoners at all security levels, minimum, medium, and maximum, as well as death row inmates. The conditions Ray, Claude, and other prisoners went through could be compared to the Southern convict leasing system that took place as early as 1846 and lasted to as late as 1949, although some sources vary. The convict leasing system is where the southern states leased prisoners to private railways, mines, and other large plantations. States profited from the convicts' work, but prisoners earned no pay and faced inhumane and dangerous work conditions.
Ain't no
The
black
environment was so
people in
brutal,
jail. I
it was
mean, no
often
white
called
people in
slavery
jail.
by another name. Inmates were required to pick 200 pounds of cotton per day,
It's
and the ones that
crazy.
fell short
No
would be
white people.
13th Amendment prohibited slavery and involuntary servitude in 1865, but it didn't include those who were convicted of a crime. Race is a huge theme when it comes to the movie Life. Towards the beginning of the film, when Ray and Claude are making their trip from New York to Mississippi, they stop at an all-white diner that doesn't allow
To
blacks in.
get some
How
pie.
much it gonna cost to turn one of them white only pies?
It's a nigga pie.
Nigga pie.
How about I turn y'all into nigga pie?
From
I'm
the treatment
good.
at the restaurant to the treatment of the prisoners on the prison farm, it's clear that the Southern convict system was a loophole where its purpose was to continue slavery in the South, let the Southern states keep on doing that stupid, and the system used slavery as a punishment for a crime. Illiteracy.
Mm.
According to the state penitentiary report of 1970, blacks made up about 90% of the prison population. Most were illiterate,
90%.
serving long sentences for violent crimes. Which brings us back to the scene where Ray
Ain't got
reads
no
a letter
white people.
that Poker Face had for 4 months. The letter was nothing but bad news.
Anybody else got something they want read?
Nah, I don't want to read nothing.
Out of all the inmates, sentences for murder made up 35%. At the time, 38% of black inmates got life sentences and 58% got 10 years or more. Real estate.
Do 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 do
The
do.
look, accurate. According to the book that discusses the specific prison system, worse than slavery, the prison farm doesn't
Crazy.
look like a prison at all, but instead a plantation with no walls,
Yep.
guard towers, or cell blocks. When Ray and Claude first get to the jail, Sergeant Dillard tells them that they don't need fences because we got a gun line, boss.
Tell me about the gun line,
Try
boss.
to run, don't try to escape. One of my trustees will put a bullet in your head.
My trustee.
Trustees, accurate. The trustees the sergeant was talking about were a real thing too. Trustees were prison inmates that were selected by officials because they were trustworthy and they made them into armed guards. They had a
Mhm.
strong desire to please the white man above them, and
Yeah.
they were feared and hated by the black men below them.
That's the house
Take Uncle
nigga.
Ruckus, or Sam Jackson's Steven in Django. Hoppin' Bob was a character in the Life movie who showed off in
Hopping box. This the house nigga. That's the house nigga.
front of the master in order to keep his position. It's unclear if Hoppin' Bob was an official trustee on the prison farm, but he definitely fits the description. Uniforms, accurate. When prisoners showed up to the Parchment Farm, they were gifted what they call ring-arounds. Shirts and pants with horizontal black and white stripes, much like the ones you see in the film. That shit was ugly. According to digital history, 10% of Alabama's total revenue came from convict leasing. In 1898, that number increased to an unbelievable 73%. Death rates among convicts were around 10 times higher than the death rates of prisoners in non-leased states.
They
In
dying on the
1873,
field.
approximately 25% of black leased convicts died. It wasn't long until the convict leasing system transformed into something else. Prisoners that worked for private companies and businesses eventually began working for the public sector, which led to the chain gang. Ooh, conjugal visits. Accurate.
Mm-hmm.
In the film, during one of the family visits, Claude's fiancee Daisy visits, and he bribes the sheriff to give him a temporary marriage license. Conjugal visits were common in the Mississippi State Penitentiary, as were bribes. According to the evolution of conjugal visiting in Mississippi, author Columbus B. Hopper said The visits began as early as 1918. They were originally only available to black males because they thought black males were more promiscuous. They thought we was nasty than whites and had a stronger sex drive than the whites did. And authorities thought that if they were allowed to have intercourse, they'd be more productive when it came to their labor. These conjugal
Wow.
visits were created because they help reduce homosexuality and
Wow.
sexual assaults in prison. However, just because they exist, it doesn't.
See, I was just talking about that, y'all. Turn these prisons into colleges, man. You let them get some booty or whatever. They female a conjugal visit on the regular. Let them educate themselves, learn from their mistake, and they come out on a whole new level. Stop the sending up the deck, stabbing, rape, killing, all that violence. Oh man, somebody got
Doesn't
the
mean
right
that there
idea.
wasn't still some down low men in prison. Claude. Yeah, Claude.
Your hand nice and supple, like a lady.
Prison to
What
Major
you
League
mean,
Baseball.
man? Back
Accurate.
up.
Believe it or not, the story Can't Get Right was something that actually happened. Ronald LaFleur was sentenced to 5 to 15 years in prison after robbing a neighborhood bar with a rifle. Much like Can't Get Right, LaFleur's first experience with organized baseball was in prison. While there, LaFleur met Jimmy Caralla, a fellow inmate who saw his talent and got in touch with a friend who got in touch with another friend who got in touch with a friend that led with a meeting with the Detroit Tigers. LaFleur was released from prison in 1973 and immediately signed a contract with the Tigers where he played until 1979. Ray convinced a reluctant Claude to let Can't Get Right play baseball. Both were pleasantly surprised when they found out he had talent. They thought he was their ticket out of prison. They told the Negro League scout that they were Can't Get Right's handlers. They had to play nice if they wanted to get out too.
All right.
Take care.
Have a nice day.
Okay.
Yeah. Walked up smooth with my drinking. Sure did. I ain't gonna say nothing. Have a good day. We're going. Enjoy, man.
Go
Can't Get
ahead.
Right was eventually
Make me some
pardoned
more.
and released from Camp 8. Unfortunately for Ray and Claude, the pardon didn't include them and they remained in jail. Escaping. Accurate. Throughout the film, Ray and Claude tried to escape prison numerous times. The first time they ran from Mississippi to Tallahassee before getting caught. And as punishment, they get sent to the hole. Years later, Ray makes an escape by himself by flying a plane, but he eventually crashed and burned, and it was once again him back in the hole. In the film, the punishment for running away was being sent to the hole. Seems like a light sentence for trying to run away. Escaping Mississippi State Penitentiary is no easy task. In January 2020, correction officers discovered two men missing from Parchment during an emergency inmate count in the middle of the night, just like the real life film. Two made it all the way to Tennessee before being captured. Life is considered a comedy, but
Mm,
it does deal with some dark and serious issues that still affect us today. It's a fictional story that draws inspiration from many different real life incidents. While the movie is meant to make you laugh, Eddie made sure it featured his signature covert message. He talked about real things. He
real
gave it to
thing.
us in a digestible package. Through the movie, we got to take a look inside the convict leasing system and wrongful convictions, and we got to see what life lessons were true. In 1997, it's discovered that after living in the infirmary, Ray and Claude stole two bodies from the morgue, planted the bodies in their beds, started a fire, and hid in the fire trucks and left with them. Finally, Finally, after 65 years of being wrongfully imprisoned,
65
Ray and Claude
years.
had their freedom. Unfortunately, most people who are
Way
wrongfully convicted do not
late.
get the happy ending that Ray, Claude, Ricky Jackson, John Bunn, the exonerated five do not get. While these men knew they were innocent, one thing they never did was give up hope.
Well, they are having. Hey, that's how the world is. It's so messed up. It's so cruel. It's dumb. So messed up, man. But it's your boy Mullah. This we got that fire. We're gonna be
Halo
back with
Nation,
another one.
you see
Well, what I can say, shout out to Eddie and Martin. That was like some real. It was some good comedy, but they had some real life issues going on. They showing the world at the same time. Life learning experience. But yeah, y'all need to wake up, people. But yeah, we gonna be back with another one. Alright? And I'm out of here. Bow.